Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm editorial board chair for CTO magazine. I'm also the regional vice president and executive leader for our strategic data management and analytics practice at Fusion Alliance down in the Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky region that's located out of Cincinnati. I'm excited about the interview today. I have a great opportunity to introduce Julian Delany, who is Chief Technology Officer and also heads data and digital at News Corp in Australia. Julian, welcome to the interview today.
G'day, Mark. It's nice to be with you from down here in Sydney.
I want to talk a little bit now in a pivot about digital transformation. And clearly, News Corp Australia has gone through a major digital transformation as a platform. As you're on this digital and data transformation journey, can you let us know where you are along the way? And, how did you, in the last couple of years, really architect that journey, and where are you headed? What are the kind of the big goalposts that are out there? As we've come through the pandemic, you've learned and pivoted and implemented and adjusted aspects of your strategy. But a couple of years you got to where you are, and where are you headed?
Look, I think we're well on the way, but I'm marking my own homework. But I do think we're well on the way of digital transformation. Not an easy one for a publisher, a media publisher. I'm sure you speak to different sectors, but transformation in media publishing, particularly for us, has been quite purposeful. We haven't just assumed it will take place. The leading indicator for this, however, is that consumers are consuming our product digitally. So the evidence of our need to digitally transform has been in front of us. I think that we're well on. I think we're well on the way. I think the challenge now is actually, because we've done some structural change in our digital transformation. For example, getting us all onto the same app platform, getting us all onto the same web platform, simplifying some of our editorial processes. But there's more to come. But I think the challenge actually is choosing which is the next one to do. And by this, I mean that it's almost like a lot of the low fruit has sort of been picked. The higher fruit now is where we've got to be focused on and trying to work through where we do that. And sometimes that higher fruit of transformation requires just as much investment and strategic thought as those more obvious ones that I referenced earlier. I think that the challenges since we started, I know you're going to ask me this later, but one of the challenges of transformation actually is in change management. So I might hold that thought for a minute, because that's another topic that I might touch on later.
Actually, that it's so relevant contextually to what you're saying. Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about it?
I think with change management, I don't think we've nailed this across the business, but there are really some great pockets of where this has happened. I actually think there's a trap here in change management and linked to transformation. And the trap for me is that someone says, let's bring a change manager in to do this change management. And in my view, you can't expect a change manager, this is my inverted commas, to deliver on the change management. It's the person who's leading the program of change, more than likely an executive such as myself, who actually has to lead the change management, because they're the ones who are driving the messaging, they're driving the process, they're the ones who are guiding people through the really difficult meetings that occur, or the difficult junctions of decision. The change manager can't do that. They can help get you down the river, but there's still got to be somebody who really understands where the North Star is with regards to the transformation program and or the change management. If that's not clear, and if it's not led by someone from within the business, I think you're going to get 3 PowerPoints with no action, and on the eve of change, on the moment before something is going to change, the business is just going to say, I don't want to do this. And a massive problem. You've invested, you've got your team ready, because often transformation and change is outside of your particular domain. So this is my view on it. Not everybody agrees with me, but hopefully I've made my point there about that.
The change management dimension, and it's been fascinating to me. I've worked with a number of news organizations over my career, and this pivot from a deadline-driven content, editorial approval process to press-ready content to the press process to production and distribution of final product each day, 7 days a week. That whole process has given way in the digital age to almost a 24/7 streaming capability as news is happening, an editorial process that's become 24/7, before content can release to the site, et cetera. And when I think about those things, and I've watched this from the supporting side of engaging with organizations who are building out this new digital capability, it's been fascinating to watch how the workflow has changed, how the points of engagement have changed, how the approval processes have changed, and how the content aspect of the publication has really morphed into a kind of a convergence with its operational metadata, with the operating content and the people in the organization. So I'm curious about, when you think about change management at those tactical levels, how that change management has, been physically executed as your organization has moved those kinds of transformations in this digital world.
Well, I suppose in that publishing process, there's some steps that you just can't change. Verification and making sure that stories and facts within those stories are correct. I think that there's the way in which we've handled it is to first of all plant a seed of what could be possible if we actually go on and adjust, change a particular process in that. And I must say that there's often a willingness, if at the very beginning of a change management or transformation process, if you take the time to articulate what exactly you are trying to change. And I would say that at our company, there is a willingness to do that. But unless you've taken the time to tell the story of that change up front, you might run into a few problems. I think change as well. You can't, I'm a CTO, right? And you can't ignore the fact that technology can bring about good transformation and change. So the use of technology, to get a bit more specific on your question, and in which we are trying to stitch together our technologies, has also enabled us to deliver on change and transformation. There's a human element to it and there's a technological element to it, as you know, in any type of change or transformation. I'm a big believer in the storytelling aspect of change, because that enables people to really join together. And in those difficult meetings that I referenced earlier, to know, well, at least we know we're trying to get to the North Star here. And one of these things we're going to have to give and take a little bit. But if we do that, we will have a more efficient production process. We will be able to reach out to our clients in a more efficient manner. We will be able to utilize our data in a more strategic fashion if we have a better metadata process behind the scenes when a journalist is constructing the story, blah, blah, blah. Like all of these things stitched together, which is another theme of one of the challenges that I face, is this connectivity theme. It's a topic maybe for another day.
Yeah, you took a word right out of my mouth and you just dropped it into a sentence and kept moving with it: metadata. And the importance of metadata is everything. It's in this world that is digitally driven. It's been, and certainly in your industry, a big topic. So as we kind of think about that concept moving into the next question, which is strategy and roadmap, I'd like you to kind of think about how you're addressing that in an organization whose whole product is data, and where metadata plays such a central role in the repository historically of all of the content that you're curating. So it looks like you guys have taken this sort of a unique approach to leveraging technology around some of these themes, around data lineage, data quality, metadata, governance of data. As a personalized engagement, commitment, which is what you guys have, one that reflects individual tastes for news and lifestyle and sports and business delivery. You've really had to understand your stakeholders. You had to understand the content you were publishing. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the approach you've taken to build out this strategy and your roadmap? And where are things like metadata management and data catalog and data quality fitting into that journey? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm glad you've noticed the effort we've made on personalization on our products, because personalization is a term thrown around a little flippantly, I would say, in the space that I'm in. But it was an incredibly important insight that we got out of a lot of consumer research we did back in 2020, 2021. And that our consumers are like, we really want to experience personalized news. That statement generated a lot of thought, a lot of work, and a lot of investment from us to actually deliver on it. I think the way in which we've done this is a combination of both bespoke and off-the-shelf technology to enable this personalization to come to life. You're talking about a company that's publishing thousands of stories a day. So just making sure that the stories that are relevant for a personalized experience to come up is not an insignificant challenge. Maybe this is a spot to put in metadata and the way in which we're tagging our sites. All of this is done at the authoring part of the process through our authoring tool. And so we're able to maybe the wrong word, use that metadata that journalists, and which is both done sometimes in an automated way, sometimes in a manual way. We're able to utilize that metadata to then put that into a very sophisticated content API, which we affectionately call CAPI, C-A-P-I. And our content API really sits at the center of our ability to create this personalization. And so that's not necessarily bespoke, but there was another area of this, which is an ability for us to match not just the content, but the consumer ID that we've got as a result of them being a subscriber. So Mark Johnson is a person to us. We know if you're a paid subscriber. That connection into the content API was actually not an insignificant piece of work, because if you go onto one of our sites, our ability to have both prescriptive personalization and ones which we're recommending is a pretty simple process. And our ability to save Mark Johnson's news preferences came into what I would call a more bespoke piece of equipment that we did. I would just say about personalization, Mark, is that personalization isn't just the technology, it's the content that feeds it for us. And if the content isn't as wide and diverse and vast as what News Corp Australia and indeed News Corp across the globe can do, then the way in which we can personalise news content would just not work.
Mm-hmm.
All of us, if we had 20 stories that were written, is that enough to satisfy Mark? I don't think so. You've got to have a wide variety of sources of content, in our instance, to be able to satisfy the 21st century consumer who is just hungry and voracious in their appetite of content consumption. So hopefully I'm answering your question there. It's quite a specific strategy that we've had, and one that's not finished. I mean, we will continue to work through that.
I think you did address it, and I believe you nailed the importance of the metadata in enabling that strategy to manifest.
Fundamental. Yeah. It's fundamental, because otherwise any of the personalization engines that you create, they got nothing to feed off.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the content doesn't feed them; it's the metadata that selects
Correct.
the feed.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
So,
Great.
but the metadata program wasn't something we did, fortunately, at the beginning of the personalization program. We'd already been doing that. I suppose this is an example of having a good data source or a good piece of data. I would call it data's data, but we weren't using it to its capability or its capacity. And this is why, I said earlier on the data strategy of, we got a lot of data, said the business, but we weren't utilizing it correctly. We weren't organizing it correctly. And metadata enables you to do that.
Yeah, fascinating. So for our listeners, if you like this interview and you would like to hear more like this, please visit cdomagazine.tech for more content similar to this. We're passionate about helping to educate the non-technical C-suite executive on the opportunities, investments, behaviors necessary to return that investment for what they spend on data and analytics and digital transformation. So we're just honored that you took the time to listen to this great interview. Thank you again, Mark Johnson, Editorial Board Chair, and we're out for today.